This is TBK's Truth Frame 59, a return to the year 2000, to another massacre that unfolded far from the usual front lines, in a quiet town where no one expected violence to arrive. Behind the rehab fence, the Bindunuwewa Massacre, 2000. On October 25, 2000, the stillness of Bindunuwewa, a small town tucked into Sri Lanka's Yuva province, was shattered forever. What should have been a place of healing, a government-run rehabilitation center for Tamil youth, became the scene of one of the most haunting atrocities of the Civil War era. At dawn, a mob of Sinhalese villagers, reportedly joined or enabled by police officers, breached the center's fences. Inside were young detainees, many unarmed, many preparing for release, many believing they were on the path back to ordinary life. Instead, 27 of them were brutally murdered. The Bindunuwewa massacre did more than take lives. It exposed the terrifying fragility of reconciliation, the depth of ethnic wounds that had never been allowed to heal, and the catastrophic failure of state institutions meant to protect the vulnerable. It forced the nation, and the world, to confront a painful truth: even in places labeled rehabilitation, violence could seep through the cracks. The Bindunuwewa Rehabilitation Center was established to house former ltte cadres and Tamil youth suspected of insurgent ties. It was jointly managed by the Presidential Secretariat, Ministry of Defense, and Child Protection Authority, and was considered a model for reintegration. Most detainees were between 14 and 30 years old, held without formal charges under the Prevention of Terrorism Act, PTA. In the days leading up to the massacre, detainees protested prolonged detention, lack of legal recourse, and the withholding of letters from families. Posters appeared in the village inciting violence, with slogans like, "Tiger's flesh to our dogs." The Sri Lankan army detachment guarding the center was withdrawn the day before the attack. The massacre, a premeditated slaughter. At dawn on October 25, a mob of over 1,000 Sinhalese villagers, armed with machetes, clubs, iron rods, and torches, descended on the center. The 60 armed police officers stationed at the facility stood by, or actively participated in the killings. Victims were hacked to death, some burned alive, shot while attempting to flee, mutilated beyond recognition. One youth, Anthony John, was found with his eyes gouged out and limbs severed. The Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka later confirmed that the detainees had not provoked the attack, debunking early government claims of a riot. Initial trial. 41 individuals, including 19 police officers, were indicted. In 2003, 5 were convicted, 2 police officers and 3 civilians, and sentenced to death. Supreme Court appeal. In 2005, the Supreme Court overturned all convictions, citing lack of evidence. Observers noted judicial bias, with one justice remarking that the victims were ltte members, implying diminished culpability. Accountability gaps. Senior officers like ASP AW Diaratna and Inspector Jayantha Senavaratna, who had prior knowledge of the planned protest, were never indicted or disciplined. The National Human Rights Commission labeled the police's role a serious dereliction of duty, but stopped short of criminal responsibility. Political and social implications. The Bindunuwewa massacre revealed state complicity in ethnic violence, the failure of transitional justice mechanisms, the erosion of trust between Tamil civilians and state institutions, It also highlighted the danger of politicized rehabilitation, where detainees were treated as enemies rather than citizens deserving reintegration. Despite international condemnation, no one remains imprisoned for the massacre. Families of the victims continue to seek justice, while many still wonder if their missing children were among the charred remains. The massacre is commemorated annually by Tamil communities and human rights groups as a symbol of state terror and impunity. Behind the rehab fence was meant to be a place of healing. Instead, it became a killing ground, where ethnic hatred, state negligence, and judicial failure converged. The Bindunuwewa massacre stands as a chilling reminder that reconciliation without accountability is a hollow promise, and that justice delayed, or denied, is a wound that never heals. Couldn't senior officers like ASP A.W. Daya Ratna and Inspector Jayantha Senavaratna, who had prior knowledge of the planned protest, were never indicted or disciplined? The National Human Rights Commission labeled the police's role a serious dereliction of duty, but stopped short of criminal responsibility. Survivor testimonies. Sinathambi Rajendran, injured survivor. We were taught to be good citizens. We had good teachers and instructors. They were soft-spoken. They never used the word umba in addressing us. Quoted in Justice Phk Kulatalaka's Commission report. Rajendran, who suffered injuries during the attack, described the rehabilitation center as peaceful and respectful, until the massacre shattered that trust. Unnamed survivor, age 16, former child soldier. They came with knives and iron rods. We ran, but the police fired at us. I saw my friend fall. I hid under a bed until it was over. Recounted in Boston Review. This survivor was one of 14 who escaped. His account underscores the betrayal by police who were meant to protect them. Family member of Anthony John, victim. One of Anthony's eyes was removed from the decapitated head, both arms had been cut off, and the entire body was covered with deep cuts. Reported by Tamil Guardian. Anthony's mutilated body became a symbol of the savagery inflicted on detainees. His family struggled for years to claim his remains. Key sources. Wikipedia, Bindunuwewa Massacre. On October 24, 2000, a mob of Sinhalese villagers armed with knives, rods, and torches stormed the low-security detention center in Bindunuwewa, Badula, killing 26 Tamil detainees, most of whom were former ltte cadres aged 21 to 30. The Sri Lankan Army detachment had been withdrawn the day before, and police officers present refused to intervene, allowing the massacre to unfold. Asian Human Rights Commission, Sri Lanka, the Bindunuwewa Massacre. This submission to the UN Commission on Human Rights reveals that 60 armed police officers were present during the massacre and allegedly enabled or participated in the killings. It challenges the official narrative of a spontaneous mob attack, suggesting the attackers were transported to the site, acted with military precision, and were likely trained operatives. Human Rights Watch, Failure of Justice for Victims of Massacre. This report documents the legal aftermath, where several police officers were initially convicted of murder, only to be acquitted by the Supreme Court in 2005. It highlights the culture of impunity and the failure of Sri Lanka's justice system to hold perpetrators accountable. This is TBK's Truth Frame. Thank you and keep looking for my historical videos.